Hello, welcome back to another episode of Somewhere Between a Film and TV podcast. We are your hosts. I am Daniel Parra.
I'm Erwin Trejo, and a fly was just right there in front of us. What the fuck?
Thank you so much for listening and watching. Number one, what are they going to do?
They're going to like, comment, and subscribe?
They are.
Somewhere there.
Yeah, anywhere down there. I'll add in something so they can see it.
Somewhere.
We are reviewing what, Erwin?
The Substance.
The Substance. And I'm going to ask you something, but before I do,
Have
just
I ever
know,
used any substance?
Have you ever used any substances? Not that. Everything we review has full spoilers. Everything. So
that is true.
If you're curious what we thought, I'm going to ask you a question really quick and then maybe come back to this video. Erwin, yes. With The Substance, did you love this movie? Did you hate it? Or are you somewhere between?
I loved it.
Yeah?
Yes.
I loved it a lot too. And it's incredible. I thought it was perfect. I'm going to be honest with you guys.
It was great.
So, exit out of there now if you haven't seen it yet, but come back around. For everyone else, Erwin, what's The Substance about?
What it's about, it's a, I guess like a actress who was famous before, and then through time she loses her fame, and what came to it too is just like the beauty standard as well through the industry, and basically she's like losing her, what I guess a lot of people would happen, where they typically their image of themselves is what they are, who they are, and like how they portray themselves. And she watches like an ad, correct?
Right, yeah.
And basically it's called The Substance.
Well, she's kind of sent an ad, right?
Or she was sent an ad?
Yeah,
or was it
because you know how she goes to someone and they check on her.
Yeah, they gave her, I guess they gave her like a, I guess like an ad. Yeah, that makes sense. They gave her an ad, and it's basically called The Substance, where they clone a younger, quote-unquote, better version of her.
Yeah. And
basically, it's just a clone of herself. Mm. Basically it's just that, and a lot of what it comes with is just like body horror and a lot of like psychological stuff that they bring up along the way.
It's a lot. This is a body horror movie at the end of the day. It is incredibly inspired by so many things you may have seen before. It's funny you mentioned that a fly was flying around at the beginning of this, because The Fly is one. And there's also Society, and I don't know if you've seen that. No. We live in one. And we'll get to it next week. Is it next week? But outside of that, I want to ask you something, because I know you as a person, right?
Not a lizard.
Okay. Like lizard,
you like lizard people? Yeah.
Yeah. You as a person with gore.
What?
I know how
you as a person with gore. You also have gore.
No, in the inside of you, yes, but how gore is treated in movies.
Oh, yes.
I thought of you when I watched this, as I often do. Did it bother you, or did it surprise you, or did you feel like it was a tangible and important thing to the story?
Definitely important to the story, just because how they portray the whole cloning process.
Yeah.
Just because you see her, basically, the main actress is laying on the ground, basically suffering through the process of like this cloning process, and literally a version of her is coming out of her back.
Yeah.
And I think that's like the best aspect when it came to the body horror.
Yeah.
And then like closing it up and like closing up her body and everything too. Like all that aspect was great. But in this movie, it definitely surprised me, because I'm not a big fan of gore.
Yeah, and
horror movies, just
I kind of like it.
Not because it grosses me out or anything. It's just I don't find it typically like creepy or scary. But the way they handled it in this movie, it definitely gave me chills down my spine.
Yeah, no, nice.
Hey, you like that?
Yeah, I do like
Thanks,
that.
man.
Yeah, great job.
Yeah, I need that.
Okay.
I needed that.
What were you saying?
Basically, I actually liked what they were doing when it came to the horror aspects of this movie.
Yeah.
Especially using a lot of like body images too.
So we have talked before about how we are not fans of subtlety necessarily. Mm-hmm. If something wants to make its point, I say make it however you choose.
Yes.
This movie has multiple themes of things that are incredibly in your face, almost literally in your face. And we'll get into that with Dennis Quaid later.
Oh, yes.
And there are so many themes that are at the forefront here. I don't know if you've seen Coralie Fargeat's previous movie, which is called Revenge.
No.
It's also visceral and in your face and intense. It's very French director, and you can feel that this movie also retains that kind of Frenchness of it.
What studio made this movie?
This was Mubi. This is their first big release in terms of
Wait, what
sending
is it? What studio?
Mubi, M-U-B-I. I don't know if you ever saw Decision to Leave, but for the most part, they're a streaming service.
Okay.
And they bought this and they sent it into theaters because this premiered at the Cannes Film Festival, and it was a huge deal. It even shows in the title cards at the beginning that it won Best Original Screenplay.
Oh, wow.
And I agree with everything there. Don't get me wrong, it's not subtle for shit, but I do think the entire point of this movie is to hit you on the head with the themes that are present here.
I mean, even just from the very beginning of the movie itself, because my favorite part where it connected from the beginning to the end of the movie, where it's the star on the ground.
If we were to talk about just insane visuals, and it's funny that this is one of the simpler ones in this movie, there are two at the very beginning that stuck with me. At the very beginning.
Right? In the beginning, I was just like, okay, I know what they're going to go for.
Yeah, because even in the... Did you get it even from, like, the egg shot?
Yes.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's shown that, even in the script itself, because I read the first page because it was trending, and I'm glad that we're reviewing this now instead of initially, like, the day it came out when I saw it, because there are some divisive elements in this movie that I want to cover that we probably don't agree with, but at least we can bring up a separate point.
Okay.
And the entire beginning of this, with even the egg thing right before the star, I believe that's how it goes, is the focal point of the movie. It shows the regular original version, right?
Yes.
And then the second version, which is pristine and the better looking one, but also looks more artificial in a sense.
But also looks the same too. But even throughout the whole movie, where they keep, even like through the ad, whenever she would watch the video talking about the substance,
right?
Whenever she was on the phone with, I guess, a worker that was prescribing the substance to, kept saying the same thing over and over again. You guys are the same. You are one.
Yeah.
There's no two different people. You guys are the exact same.
Yeah.
And I love that so much because it definitely showcases that, just like the duality of, at the end of the day, like you're just fighting yourself.
Yeah. No, every time. I also want to mention, before we fully get into that, let's go ahead and talk about the cast for a second, because you reminded me that guy has a great voice, whoever was doing that, the voiceover work there. That was. But Margaret Qualley, who's been on the come up lately in the past few years, Demi Moore, and I do think he's integral to this movie because he's one of the best parts of it, even though I've heard he's a terrible person, is Dennis Quaid.
Yes.
And,
I haven't heard great things about him.
Yeah, too, including from his own son. But
no, I haven't heard anything from his son.
Jack Quaid.
Yeah.
But what did you think of the performances in this movie?
I think for sure Demi Moore and Margaret
Qualley? I'm actually not sure.
I mean,
Qualley
honestly,
or Qualley,
yeah. I think both of them did a great job.
Yeah.
Basically showcasing, well, at least one person's like downfall when it comes to stardom, and the other person rising up to it. Dennis Quaid, I love Dennis Quaid in this movie.
I do too.
I just wish he was in it more too.
If we were going to talk about, let's separate performance from artists themselves for a second. I've seen a lot of people say this about this movie, that it's hard to eat during. And
dude, okay, let's start. The sound editing is amazing.
It's incredible
because the way that they utilize just like the sound of like slimy and just like trying to like hold things, and I don't know, it made you feel like you were there through the whole movie too.
I have gone on record here that I always tell you that things don't make me wince very much. I don't really ever cover my eyes, but this one I was like, I shook my head a lot during this movie.
Mine was definitely with Dennis Quaid in the beginning.
Was it the shrimp thing? Everyone has said this.
Yes.
It's disgusting. Like, of all the things in this movie, like, someone gives...
It's probably just to mirror, like, the character himself.
Yeah, but someone gives birth to a boob in this, right?
Yes.
And that's to me grosser than anything that happens in, like, the final third.
I don't know why.
I don't know if it's because... Going back to the in-your-face idea, there's this, like, sort of fish-eye lens thing they do with him. Especially if we were to talk about what you said, which is the themes of everything having to deal with the kind of, like, monstrous attitude that he has, because that's definitely what it's supposed to be, is whenever it's, like, this focal shot of him at the urinal, and his head is, like, expanded. And it's almost like he's, like, going cross-eyed because of, like, how... focused in the camera.
I guess that's supposed to mirror too, like how later on in the movie too.
Oh right, like towards the end, you mean? But that makes sense because the way the body distorts. That's great. Yeah. But I think that outside of him, Demi Moore is definitely the anchor of this movie. If Margaret Qualley and her share equal screen time, sort of, I think. But
because mostly what Margaret Qualley's character goes through is just her. It's like her just basically getting all the fame and glory that Demi Moore had in the very beginning of her career. Yeah. While Demi Moore's character is just getting all the downfall of it.
Because they even say at a point, like, do you want to stop? And she hesitates. And she's like, well...
if we are one. Yeah. Right?
Because they're like, she keeps abusing the substance. And I think that there was an interesting thing... I don't think that this movie's setting up a sequel. It definitely isn't. No, that's a very Hollywood line of thinking. Yeah. But they give you a glimpse of the fact that other people do this too. Whenever she runs into that guy and she's like, have you been following me? And the guy sort of sets up like the have they started eating slowly away at you yet part of it. It made me curious what was going on with him, only in the sense of them giving us that information. Yeah. Because it makes me wonder if everyone starts to sort of eat at themselves after that question is given.
Or like they eat themselves of the... Because I guess like some of the themes too, it's just like the body dysmorphia. Yeah. For sure. That's like very heavy in this movie. And basically the aspect of them like taking advantage of you, of your old self, just to focus on like something better along in the future and not caring for yourself. Yeah. In that sort of way. And like, I don't know, it's just, I just love that aspect.
No, I loved it too because, I mean, in terms of body dysmorphia, I know that we can relate as two people that were like more overweight in high school, but then like later on, you know, transitioning from that, but you still feel this sort of, I mean, I'm not trying to make a pun here, but like a weight of that. And you're like, sometimes you look at yourself and the scene in the mirror where she like goes on the date, but then
that's like, probably my favorite scene out of the whole like movie. Really? Just because I feel that scene alone can be so relatable to a lot of people. Yeah. Because you think like, oh, okay, great. Like I look great. I feel great. But then the overcast shadow of your younger self of like, but that's just her. At the end of the day, that's her. Yeah. But it's the fact that she thinks like, well, I don't look good as that one day.
But she's like chasing something or like, I think it's supposed to evoke that emotion of when you look at a picture of yourself in the past and you're like, why don't I look like that? Like, or like maybe you even still do, but like it's this idea of age catching up to you or the fact that you don't mentally feel the same as you did at that point. Yes. And it's one of the visuals that's used for the marketing in this movie, and yet it's the entire point of this movie is that shot of her and her. This movie does take place in 100% a fictional world. I know that there are going to be people out there that are like, why is it snowing in Los Angeles? This is not this kind of movie. It's not. And the entire point, while it's in your face, is when she's like in that insane looking apartment and her, like the billboard is cast over her and then it like she's looking at it and it's driving her crazy. Or then she like turns on the weird Jimmy Fallon looking thing that like that's not real
and then eventually like she puts a bunch of newspapers on the window to cover it up and all.
I loved all of that stuff, and I loved the fact that there's this back and forth there with like the dream sequences that might also be real, but like only
I would say it was dream sequences because the one part that stuck out to me that I found relatable was when Margaret Qualley's character was doing the dance like training video, and she like bends over
with the chicken thing
with the drumstick, and she had to leave because she thought it was poking out of her, and she like just takes it out, but she just wakes up,
No, that's where I was heading with that because I mean, who cannot relate to eating like 10,000 calories in the middle of the night? I 100% can.
Yeah, and thinking like, oh my god, it's all on my stomach, nowhere else.
But then this idea that your older self is retaliating to your younger self, it's an inversion of that, which I think is brilliant because
they do that a lot in this movie.
Yeah, because it's also another thing where it's this idea of this younger version of yourself diminishing you at that point, so the older version of you has to deal with the repercussions later, but they do physically show this.
Yes.
And I don't know if you saw this with a packed crowd by chance.
No.
Okay, I did, and the reactions were insane. I'm really glad I got to see it with the people I saw it with, because I'm not someone that can stay up late. I'm not at all. And I saw this movie at 10:45 p.m.
Damn.
And I was really concerned about falling asleep. I think it is impossible to fall asleep during this movie.
Yeah, there was no way.
Because I was immediately immersed, and it's also insane and goes to places that I heavily respect. And I don't know which thing you thought, in terms of a big reveal, I know at Alamo they serve like the check at like the final 45 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you went to one of those for this.
No.
But
no, I didn't.
Okay. But at the point where they reveal that she's been, sticking the needle in her back over and over, and the visual of that getting grosser and grosser as it goes on, I don't know if whenever she comes out and she looks the way she does that first time, if you thought that was going to be like the big body horror thing in this movie.
I mean, I didn't realize it was going to be like a monster-esque type of... I didn't know anything about this movie, to be honest, except for like I saw the trailer once.
Yeah.
But other than that, like I just didn't really know much about it. I just knew it was something about body image.
Yeah.
And that was it. I didn't know there was going to be like some type of monster.
I didn't know that either. I only heard that it was body horror, and someone said it reminded them of Neon Demon. And I was like, okay, then...
dang, it's been so long since I've seen Neon Demon.
And I love that movie, and it reminds me of it in like the content of what it's about, but it's definitely not the same movie at all. Yeah. But with that, the reveal of her walking out and she like looks, like the older version of herself, and she's like, I don't know how to describe it except for the fact that she reminded me of the monster from Barbarian. And
oh, yes.
But then I thought that was going to be like the thing, and I was like, maybe this is the end of the movie, but that doesn't make sense. Up until there is an additional 45 minutes of this movie.
It just kept going and going, but not in a bad way, but in a way where you're like, oh my god, this just keeps getting worse and worse and worse.
Because I thought this movie was about excess of that, and the entire point is to go there and prove your point by like going above and beyond necessarily.
I thought it was gonna end too where she what is it called, Demi Moore was gonna kill her the clone of herself.
Oh yeah, whenever they're finally awake at the same time.
Yes, I thought like Margaret Qualley was gonna kill Demi Moore finally, and then like just end up becoming like the younger version of her.
Yeah.
But still have like those battling thoughts, and it'll just be a continued cycle. Yeah. Over and over again. But it just didn't make sense to me too, because the clone couldn't live without her.
Like, because they say that you have to exist at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just like, it's insane, because then why would the clone just keep trying to take too from her older self?
Because it's supposed to be this movie reminds me of those ideas of like, they're the, what do they call them? Cautionary tales of don't do it, don't take this, don't think of like the easier way back, like Fountain of Youth type situations. Yes. And like I said, the themes are so obvious there, but this movie is campy in the sense that it goes for broke. It does everything it says it's set out to do, which is why I respect it so much. We talk about things that have substance in them, right? And I've been saving that.
Dude, it's like, I haven't saved that for 3 weeks.
I have been saving that. I was going to say we're men of substance, but...
oh, damn, that's good too.
Yeah, thank you. But... yeah, I needed that too. So, I do think that this movie... We always say that things need to follow through on their potential. 100% this does.
Yes, it definitely did.
Did you get struck by the set design here and like the prosthetics of everything?
Oh yeah,
Because
I love the set design of the studio.
yeah,
Like the walkway, it definitely reminded me of like The Shining.
The Shining 100%, and they
yes.
even when like the big Elisa Monstro thing walks out and the blood
Blood's
is everywhere, I was like,
everywhere,
why?
yeah,
Because in the final third act, the movie got so insane that you're like, you know what? Why not throw a Shining reference in here right now? I guess.
But it wasn't. I don't know. It was just insane. I just love the connections throughout the whole movie because I think watching it again and looking back at what they showcased in the very beginning, and you could just see how much they connect through that to the very end. Because the way you describe Dennis Quaid as like being the monster of the movie, like besides like how he is in real life, but how he is in the movie, he is supposed to be like this monster titan of the industry. And you can also say that him just being the main person in creating these like other upcomers.
Because
he makes these upcomers become the monster that he also is too.
In the third act, he even says, "I created this," up until like the whole joke is that because this movie's funny. Do not get us wrong. It's freaky and it's scary in the sense that it does ask the question of yourself: would I do this if I could? My answer is no. I'm happy aging.
I can't even imagine because I don't know. It's like you're just self-destructing yourself at that point.
Yeah.
Because I can't even imagine where if you made a clone of yourself. I don't know. It's just...
But the entire point of this, we can't necessarily touch on because it is women in the industry. And Demi Moore, I know the whole point of her, the reason why she keeps pursuing this is she feels it's the only reason she's valued. Because whenever Margaret Qualley's character, it's like all she does is sit around all day and like just eat and then watch TV. And it's, to me, because... they didn't give her like purpose outside of that. So whenever she chases the idea of the date with that guy, it's sort of like an outside perspective of maybe I should be thinking about something else. And up until this consumes her so much, because I've seen some people, some divisive things here. It's like, I don't really know these characters outside of this situation that they're in, but I don't think you're supposed to.
If your life was surrounded by just that, then that's all you're going to ever be.
Yeah, because I saw some of the other critiques that were like, oh, I mean, all of their pursuits are vapid and just about themselves. I'm like, that's the point. They're told that's all that matters. So that's the only thing they want to chase throughout the entire ideal of this movie. And I love that, and I think it's on purpose because of the star at the beginning. It's supposed to be this idea of fame and the pursuit of it. And I love... the visual of that. I think it's so crazy.
Yeah, a lot of it comes down to like the shots of the movie too, because anytime it was focused on Dennis Quaid or even Margaret Qualley, there was a lot of zoom in shots of them like themselves, and I feel like that just showcased a lot where it's supposed to be like in your face, like in the moment. It feels very high and heavy for yourself, like a high like dopamine effect. And anytime it would go to Demi Moore, it would be very just like a normal shot, or even just like a shot that's like very wide and away from her, and it's I don't know. To me, it makes it look very low, like you're in a very low point.
Is it like the idea of like the world consuming her in comparison of them sort of feeling in control of like their perspective? That makes sense. But with that as well, I think that going back to like that star shot too, I thought it was kind of crazy that. If you took that alone as a short film, you get the point of the movie.
Oh, like, dude, yes.
Yeah. Because if you just showed that, you'd be like, what's this about? And you'd be like, oh, it's about someone that was rising in fame and then sort of lost as time went on. And another thing that you said about how they focus on... even Margaret Qualley's character, Qualley, however you want to say it. This is the most clinical I've ever seen people objectify other people in terms of a camera lens. Because... all of the stuff that they show, I'm like, it's incredibly sexual, but I'm also like, okay, hang on, this is like incredibly aggressive, and I do not think that they would show this on TV. Because even in the third act, I thought it was funny that they had multiple, and this was definitely on purpose, like multiple topless women that were on screen. But of course they covered that little girl's eyes when like the freaky monster thing comes out, because that's probably another commentary on like how in America we treat violence differently than we do nudity. And I do think that this movie has a lot to say.
Well, even nudity itself, though, too, you can say like how I guess just here in the West, how it's viewed upon differently than like other places around the world too.
Yeah.
So.
My question for you is, do you have any negatives with this?
Honestly, I would love to see if they were able to get more of how the industry was.
Yeah.
Just because with Dennis Quaid, anytime he was on screen and present, it just made me curious to see not just what he did, but what like others do around him, and just how he ran things. I mean, it's obvious what they were trying to do and like what they did with his character, but I wish they just showed more. But not in a bad way though. Just more in the sense of that. I wish I got to see more of that. Yeah.
I mean, his suits were like super flashy, and one other thing I want to say about the industry and how it works, because I do think it's supposed to be all visual, because all of the goofballs that are around him in that third act don't say anything. Yeah. But did you notice that they all looked the same? They were all aged and bald and old and just looked like all the same person. I like that idea that they're allowed to do that, but not women. The women that are the focal point of this movie. And I also want to say one more thing before we wrap up. The ending. Did you like it?
Honestly, I did. Yeah. I genuinely loved it. I don't know. Something about it. It seemed so comical, yet so creepy at the same time.
My favorite thing was when she ironed her hair and then
and it just rips.
Burned off. And she still put on the...
It's just the fact that the idea of her thinking that that's, you know what you said, like that's all who she is, of somebody to be looked at and nothing more. Nothing Demi Moore.
Nothing Demi Moore.
That she ends up still trying to pursue this dream of just being a rising star, being something of stardom, and being basically a person that can be looked at.
Yeah, to be the star of the show, which, interestingly enough, whether she wanted it or not, she got it. Maybe not in the way that she thought, but
especially the part where like blood started shooting everywhere around the theater. I was just
loud.
like,
I laughed so hard. It's like, this is insane. I respect it so much. Yes. I adored this movie. Did you?
Yeah, me too.
What's your score?
5 out of 5.
I also gave this a 5 out of 5.
I would love to see this movie again.
This is gonna be top 2 or 3 end of the year. Like, this is
top 10.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for listening and watching. If you could, again, what are they going to do?
Like, comment, and subscribe.
Please do. What did you think of The Substance? I am really curious. I saw that even general audiences apparently love this, so that's crazy. Awesome. Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening and watching. We will see you next time.
Love that.